Welcome to Unlatched Mind. My guest today is Dr. Scott Barry Kaufman. Dr. Kaufman has released a new book called Transcend, the new Science of Self-Actualization. You know, the book talks through practical steps on how to live a more connected and fulfilled life. It really is a good read, and I highly recommend it. We initially started talking about a concept called Moral Grandstanding, which was really based on a blog that Dr. Kaufman had written. So I found that super interesting. I find moral grandstanding super interesting just because it pretty much defines every discourse, or almost every discourse you see on social media, whether it's Twitter or Facebook or whatever. So we dug into his blog a little bit, and then we jumped right into his book. So we didn't have a lot of time, so this is a short one. But anyway, with that, I give you Dr. Scott Barry Kaufman. Well, Scott, thank you for joining us. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks. Glad to be on the show.
Thanks, man. Now, before we dig in, could you just give the audience a little background of, bio of you and what you got going on?
Oh, sure. Well, I'm a humanistic psychologist, and I'm interested in helping all people live creative, fulfilling, and self-actualized lives. And I've taught at University of Pennsylvania and NYU and Columbia University on the science of living well and self-actualization.
So what exactly is self-actualization? I mean, I know, but sort of know, but question. Yeah, what does that mean?
Well, Abraham Maslow, who is known for using that term self-actualization, he really saw it as becoming the best that we could possibly be, really realizing our full potentialities and not just for ourselves, but for the world at large. So ultimately transcending ourselves and becoming something better than ourselves in a way. We can't fully realize our potential if we don't get outside of ourselves. And that's a paradox that Maslow was working on for much of his life.
When we say get outside yourself, I mean, is that more like in the mindfulness concept, or the observing what you're feeling, what you're thinking, when you say get outside yourselves, what do you mean?
Yeah. Well, we have lots of potentials within us that we can realize, and we can focus on some at the exclusion to others, and we have to decide what we want to do. There are some things that will make us realize our potential, such as developing a talent in some way, or we can focus so much on competing and dominating the competition, but we won't really feel fulfilled ultimately at a deep level until we can turn outward to the world at large and see what we're being called to do to help rise the tide for everyone, not just yourself.
Now, is that? I mean, that sounds amazing. I mean, I wish more, humanity would subscribe to that, and maybe more do than I think. But it doesn't seem to be the case. But all right. So now we were going to talk about some one of the blogs that I had ran across in your work. I mean, you have tons of content out there, and we'll get to your book in a little bit. But this concept of moral grandstanding, I reached out to you about this topic just because for me, I feel like it underpins a lot of the strife that we observe, we partake in, whether it's online. There's always a political debate online, whether it's religion, politics, or it could be anything really. But obviously, those are the big two. And you had written an article about moral grandstanding, and it just hit home for me. And a lot of my episodes kind of touch on this because I think it's such a big problem we have. And whether you're watching the hardcore liberals and the hardcore conservatives go at it, whether online or even not,
they're all annoying. Everyone's annoying.
True statement. Yeah, I agree too. But it's like, but to be honest, I kind of look at myself in the past when I was younger, and I was like, I probably had some of those traits, and I'm ashamed to have gone through that stage. But I think I matured past it, and it's probably some sprinklings there still, but it seemed like there's such this deep kind of desire to like put others down and prop yourself up and to gain that I would say that status with your peers or people that'll like you. And that's kind of what you talk through in this article. So for me, it was like, and a lot of what I like to do is to cover topics that can create, make me a better person, make my listeners better people, make us think about what we're doing every day. And I said, this would be a perfect article to talk through. So, so I guess moral grandstanding, you want to define it in simple terms for us?
Sure. It's the use and abuse of moral talk to seek status, to promote oneself, or to boost your own brand.
Right. So when you see folks online, and I think the article, opened with, basically it's kind of like a moral grandstanding test. I think you said something like, do you agree with any of the following? When I share my moral political beliefs, I do so to show people who disagree with me that I'm better than them. Or I share my moral political beliefs to make people who disagree with me feel bad.
Yeah.
And so I guess I feel like there's a fine line between, because obviously moral grandstanding, it's complete. It's I don't feel like there's any positive in that. It seems like it's a pretty much a negative approach to sharing ideas or discourse. But I did I was wondering, what is there a fine line between someone who's passionate about a belief they have, meaning if I'm a pro-life person versus a pro-choice person, there's some real core moral attachment there that, if someone's just, I guess that wouldn't be defined as moral grandstanding, right? If they're pitching that their ideas towards someone and their intent is not to belittle the other person, the intent is not to gain, prop themselves up. Would it be considered moral grandstanding if I'm just telling you, hey, I think, that, I think, abortion is killing children. Like if I think that, if I'm a hardcore person on this side or that side, and I'm, pronouncing those beliefs, at what point does moral grandstanding kick in, vice just trying to set a moral ground that you firmly believe?
Yeah, it does make sense. I think it is valuable to distinguish between genuine belief in something and asserting your morality. But moral grandstanding is different. It's asserting it in a way that you think you're certain that your moral belief is the only one true way, and you really hope to seek social status ultimately through espousing those beliefs, maybe through social media outlets or making money off it.
Right,
There's not a real genuine thing backing it. It's perfectly fine to have moral beliefs. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But really ask yourself, do you really believe in this cause or idea, or are you just mainly saying it to gain status from your peers and take down those who disagree with you? That's the real question there.
Right. No, that's a perfect distinction. And going back to the online thing that I was kind of, we were touching on, I think the problem with now with just social media and the online community is, I mean, moral grandstanding is literally monetized. It's monetizable, right? So if you have a YouTube channel that's hardcore conservative, hardcore liberal, hardcore X, Y, whatever, your entire platform is, I feel like, I'm not saying everyone that has an online platform, subscribes to this, but it's so easy to slide into that, that category of, if I just keep espousing to what my listeners, what my followers, what my viewers want to hear, even though I don't even know if I believe it anymore, then it's just going to keep my brand growing. And I don't know how you navigate that space safely without becoming a moral grandstander. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It seems to be encouraged, so that's why I wonder what the internet, I mean, that's just one of the bad, I think, of this online world we live in now. It's just so easy to slide into that. I don't know what.
It almost encourages it. Yeah.
For sure.
It almost, the reward structure is all set out to tickle your self-esteem.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Yep. Yeah. It's a reverse echo chamber, right? The more you kind of, it just gets louder and louder. The more you chant what you're believing. So yeah, interesting. Because I had a note here saying what grandstanding versus sticking to your principles, right? And I think you touched on that delineation there.
Yeah.
Because it
Yeah.
gets, because you mentioned something, if you espousing something you truly to believe the one truth, I think a lot of folks that maybe are on the, on the maybe the border of, grandstanding by the definition you gave is they may believe they have a monopoly on the truth, which, just
Yeah.
with some things, religion, for example, there's not, in some areas, there's not a lot of leeway to say, well, what you believe is okay too, right? Because if I believe, for example, that there's, my God is X of this book, that means your God can't exist. So you get in this weird, it's almost like this relativism thing where, so I don't know how you navigate that, but I can see how it just gets really complicated really quickly.
Yeah. And that's why it's important for people to come together and be on the side of truth, as opposed to trying to come at it from a place of defending your own beliefs.
Right.
I mean, if we're all on the same team, truth, then you don't need to take a side.
Well, that's funny you say
We're
that.
all in this together.
Yeah, you don't have to take a side. I love that because I say it all the time. Like I said, some folks are like, are you Republican, you or you Democrat? I said, well, I kind of don't have to be one, right? I'm not in politics. I don't get paid to have a party love me or constituents love me or hate me. Or now, granted, that's come voting booth, come voting time, I have to pick a side because you only have two options for the, realistically. But I don't think I have to subscribe to any one side of anything. I can pick a little here, pick a little there, disagree with that, agree with that, kind of searching, like you said, for truth. If I, so yeah, why pick a side, right?
Yeah, I like that. Keep your options
Keep
open.
your options open, right? Yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah.
But again, it's less fun, it's less exciting, it's less argumentative, it does.
Yeah, argumentative is fun.
Yeah, I get for some. I mean, I find it nauseating. I mean, I don't know, and I'm full disclosure.
Yeah.
I've gotten into that trap a few times when I was a little younger, but I don't think I do it much now online. But so I know you have a book coming out. First of all, when does it actually get released? When does it actually hit the streets? April sometime or?
So it comes out April 7th.
Okay. April 7th.
And yeah, April 7th.
Cool. So all right. Well, let's. I did get a copy. I appreciate it. I did not get a chance to read it end to end. I was skimming it. I've looked online at some. I mean, it looks like I'm an audiobook reader, but this one doesn't look like this one looks like I need to be kind of, and maybe this is not a good observation. It looks like I kind of need to be with a pen and paper and really dig into it. Is that
probably.
Okay? It's more So I mean, so what is it about? So give us the title and kind of give it like a little overview of what it's about.
Well, it's about a lot of things, but in particular, most notably, Abraham Maslow had this theory of the hierarchy of needs that a lot of people don't realize what he actually thought about it. He really thought in order to fully self-actualize, we really need to transcend ourselves, like I was saying earlier. And people think that this pyramid of this hierarchy of needs is this sort of life is sort of like this video game where you reach one level in the hierarchy. Like, have you seen the hierarchy of needs ever? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Well, only after I started dialoguing with you. I did a little homework. Yeah. So yeah. So I've seen it. Yeah.
So it turns out he never drew a pyramid to represent his theory at all. Yeah, people think he drew a pyramid. So he never drew a pyramid. So his hierarchy of needs really is showing that life is always this two-step forward, one-step back dynamic. He made that very clear. We always try to strive for growth, but then we fall on our ass, and then we pick ourselves up again and we go forward. Life is just always this constant striving, and that's the best we can do. And he also very much focused in his work on the distinction between security and growth. And he argued that in order for us to really grow to our full height, we need to transcend our ego. We need to transcend our defenses that we have erected to make ourselves feel good about ourselves, but that don't necessarily make us fully human. That don't make us all that our highest potential, what we really could be to help the world at large. So I talk about how a much better metaphor than a a pyramid, it would be a sailboat, where we have to secure our boat first before we can fully open our sails and fly.
Right, right, right. So you just touched on something that's pretty key, and I hope I interpreted it right. But you're saying to really kind of, well, whether it's self-actualize or grow, quote unquote, grow, you kind of have to break down some of the barriers that are your protecting your ego. Now, I look at like practically, what are some examples of that? Is that meaning like I should be willing to kind of extend myself to areas that I'm not quite good at, to fail a little bit, so I can grow that way and be a little more vulnerable? Is that along the right line there? Sort of.
So what's the specific question?
Oh, so you had mentioned, maybe moving up the period in this case, but I think you had said something like, to really grow, you need to kind of break down some of the barriers or walls that are protecting your ego.
Yeah.
And I look at that, is that potentially what's a real world example of that, like an applicable example? In my head I heard, hey, you know what? Say things that make you a little more vulnerable because you want to develop a deeper relationship with this person, but you're gonna expose some of your flaws.
I think that's right.
Okay.
I think that's right. I do talk a lot about narcissism, and there's different forms of narcissism. One form of narcissism is grandiose narcissism, and that's puffing ourselves up so much that we protect ourselves, so that the slightest thing where we don't look like we're great, we fall to pieces. And that's a defense mechanism. But so can being fragile or vulnerable can be a defense mechanism. Can be a defense mechanism as well. What's called vulnerable narcissism, being like, oh, I can't handle rejection or failure, so I'll just avoid the world and hide in my room all day and just fantasize about being great.
Right.
And both of those are defense mechanisms that we need to ultimately transcend and not avoid our experiences, but go toward the things that we're most fearful of.
Yeah.
It's the only way we grow. It's the only way we grow.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's true. Now, is this an evolutionary kind of adaptation to protect ourselves like that? Is there any?
Probably, yeah.
I mean, I feel like everything is, right, at some point, but yeah, that's interesting. So does the book? No. I read one review or one summary of the book, and it kind of it mentioned that you had a fresh take on this hierarchy of needs. Where does your interpretation of that, or where does it deviate from the original understanding of this pyramid or whatever? I guess it wasn't a pyramid in the beginning, but where do you deviate from the norm, I guess?
Sure. Well, that's what I was saying about my new sailboat metaphor. And I also have reconfigured the needs in some ways. So instead of self-actualization as a stage that we reach, I broke it down to 3 needs: the need for exploration, the need for love, and the need for purpose. And I put, at the top, the view of the seabird in the sky. This is transcendence. We can have maximum freedom to dive down deep and zoom in on our frailties, or we can zoom outward and look at all of humanity and all of human frailties. And we really have the maximum state of consciousness for a maximum degree of freedom to be who we want to become.
Now, does the book touch on? I mean, is it more clinical in the writing style, or does it have a little how-to kind of angle to it? Like, is someone going to read that and actually, is it actionable steps that come out of it?
Well, I have a whole, in terms of practical things,
Yeah.
if you're trying to say, Scott, how does this actually improve anyone's lives? Well, I have a whole appendix on things that people can do I call them growth challenges, to get out there and overcome their greatest fears. I mean, at the end of the day, this is what this is about, is discovering who you are, your weaknesses, but also going and facing your fears. And I have all sorts of exercises to get outside your comfort zone and explore the world and learn how to be assertive and just get out there and be your whole self, it's this life's short. And, if I can help people as much as I can to ditch the perfection and challenge their cognitive distortions and see the world accurately and be brave to become yourself. Philosophers said, existential philosophers talked a lot about the courage to be yourself, and that's what I want to help people to be.
You mentioned narcissism, but what is? I mean, there are a couple key. I mean, obviously the book will illuminate all of this, but obviously we don't have that much time. But what are the key basic tenets you think are keeping us in this funk, if you will? Because everything you're saying, it's like, yes. I mean, it sounds. I mean, I don't think anyone would hear what you're saying and say, nah, that's not a good idea. I mean, amen. Of course, let's all get there. What is keeping us in this trap? I mean, is it what's keeping us here? Because I feel like many of us aren't there, and it's we need folks like you and others to be the deep thinkers that actually lay out this roadmap for us. But what's keeping us? Why is it so hard? I guess.
That's a great $1 million question. It's hard because we have all these default insecurities and we evolved to have all these defenses that we erect around ourselves to protect ourselves, but protection ultimately just leads to protection. It doesn't lead to growth. I mean, it's just these things are deeply hardwired into us for us to care about them more.
Right. Yeah, and we don't really have to worry about as much anymore, at least in our society, about dying or our genes not continuing along if we didn't adhere to some of these old baggage type things, but they're still there, and they just damage us in so many other ways, like you said. But folks that are listening that haven't really gotten it yet, why should they pick this up?
Why should they pick up this book? Well, I think that people are struggling today with not just their ability to manage the uncertainty in their lives, which is extraordinary right now, but also they feel fragmented within themselves. They're different sides of themselves are pulling them apart in different directions. I want to help put people back together. I give them a sense of wholeness in their lives, a sense of deep fulfillment, and a sense of transcendence in their life, that there's more to this moment that they're living in. And I think that would be enough.
Now, do you touch on meditation at all in the book at all, or
I do?
Okay,
quite a bit.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's
at least mindfulness.
Sure.
But what were you going to say?
No. I said that. I mean, that's it. Sounds like the perfect remedy for. Now people have to take that first step in wanting to. One thing I notice that sometimes folks are. I'm a big self-help person. I enjoy reading things that can make me think about why I think about things and see if I can change the way I think about things to be better. So, but some folks, I don't know. I don't know if some folks are like that. I don't know if some folks are into quote unquote self-help or they think that's even a thing. I feel like a lot of, I can think through some of the older generations that they tend to be, my family not excluded. They just don't think that there's any room for that. Maybe it's I don't know, an old school tough mentality or whatever it is. But I hope fewer and fewer of us like that as we try to mature here. But
I sure hope so too.
Yeah.
We're all working to be better people, and it's not easy.
All right, Scott. Well, I do appreciate your time, and
thanks.
All right, be safe.
You too. Seriously, you too.
Thank you, man.
Bye.
And that's a wrap. Be safe out there. We'll catch you next time. This is Unlatched Mind. See ya.